This is Aaron Pierre. He's a British actor. He's been known for being in some Netflix action movie I never watched, and I'm not going to watch. Why not? I just don't care. Everything's so fucking derivative and shit. It's not really a stab at a dig at Aaron Pierre and shit. Right? It's not really a dig at him. There's something really weird and disconnecting. You know, there's something weird about this guy, man. I'm being honest and whatnot. Everything I say is my own personal ruminations, my opinion and shit. But shit. This gentleman here is being considered for the role of James Bond going forward and shit. Barbara Broccoli, so gave rights of James Bond over to Amazon and shit, completing the complete degradation of you know, the pop culture that I grew up with and shit. I grew up with James Bond and shit. I'm 56. I love James Bond, alright? And I don't think that, you know, a black man should play James Bond and shit. Some of you are gonna at me and shit, and I really don't give a fuck, okay? Ian Fleming is probably not a fan of black people and shit. So, maybe some of you can take solace in that. Some of you that support this role can take solace in the fact that, maybe he wasn't really a fan of black people and shit. He was a British gentleman and shit, the colonizer. His cousin was Christopher Lee, who played Dracula in a bunch of other roles. Yeah, yeah, Christopher Lee said that himself and shit. I'm not really getting into that. This gentleman is being considered for the iconic role of James Bond and shit. And I find that, I don't like that. I think James Bond should be a white man. Should be a white British man, okay? Fucking colonizer. Okay, that's what James Bond is. Alright? That's what James Bond is. I can suspend disbelief that, all the James Bond movies and shit, but I just can't get into this. Uh, this brother, I use that term loosely. I can't get into him as James Bond and shit. Maybe an issue of character, you know, charisma, maybe I should be saying that shit. This guy's lacking, okay? For years, they were trying to get Idris Elba to do it and shit, but I guess he didn't want to do something strange for change behind closed doors and shit. That's the way I can look at it. It's a win for him. I followed Idris Elba's career since he was on this show called Ultraviolet and shit, though, from over in the UK. Then he jumped over here, and all of a sudden he was an American black man in The Wire and shit. Completely submerged his British accent, and it comes out from time to time. He allows himself the luxury of using his actual speaking voice. This guy, I don't feel like it has that range, okay? And I'm not shitting on him as an actor and shit, but there is something about his face that is arresting and shit. Like he has this disconnected, this disaffected expression on his face, and I can't connect with him and shit. It's right in line with the last James Bond, Daniel Craig and shit, who conveyed rage, and self-loathing, but nothing else. There was no sophistication. It was just an angry man and shit. And he eventually participated in the killing of the current James Bond and shit. All right, in this last movie, he died. And then now they're talking about using Aaron Pierre, who's currently filming Green Lantern show for Warner Brothers and shit, right? And y'all probably saying like, "Hey, why am I talking about this?" Well, my channel is called The Geek Underground, for your information. God damn it! But more importantly, right? More importantly, I don't want to. I want to get in front of all the assholes that's going to come over here and say, "Oh, well, why can't he be black and shit?" Well, I'll tell you why he can't be fucking black and shit. There is something fucking weird about this guy, right? He's been lately linked, supposedly romantically, with Tiana Taylor, another woman, I use that term loosely, who has this weird, disaffected, disconnected expression on her face. She's androgynous, okay? She's androgynous. I side-eye all this Hollywood bullshit, right? Now, do I have to actually say it and shit? Do I have to actually say it? You want to read a book called Hollywood Babylon and shit. There's a couple editions of that shit. You can get it in paperback. They could probably read online at this point. Who the fuck knows? And you'll understand what I'm talking about when I talk about these studio arranged relationships and everything. Okay, I call Hollywood out for being straight up the Matrix. Right? I remember mentioning this in part on a Cardi B video I did about her relationship with Stefan Diggs and how, like in the clip where he was supposedly cheating on her, they had a woman looking off camera, getting direction from where to stand and shit in the shot. Thought it was funny as hell. I was like, oh, somebody's directing this guy's personal life and shit. You know, we see him doing a bag of blow with a bunch of bitches and shit. You know, they have to kill the image of the black man and shit, and they have to keep denigrating us and making us the boogeyman of the world and shit. What better way to do that than to, you know, sully the good name of 007 and shit by putting a sexually questionable individual in the role, the main role, okay? I usually come out and say this shit, man. There's something weird about this guy, man. Alright? He has that look, this dead eye stare. I've seen that before on people that have had a certain type of trauma, okay? And there's another actor that, you know, I've seen with that look on his face in conjunction with Tiana Taylor. They all have that same wooden stare, like a mannequin and shit, like they're submerging something into themselves and shit. Alright? I can't get behind this guy. Alright? I can't get behind this guy. You know, you want to find out who's really responsible for these ideas, you just go to the top. You just go use Google, any decent search engine. You can find out who's responsible for this nonsense. Okay? I think it's nonsense that they would cast this gentleman as 007 and shit. Right? And some of you people are gonna be like, well, you know, they change it up. They do stuff to us all the time. Why can't we have a black James Bond? Why do you need a black James Bond and shit? Why can't it be his own original fucking character? Every time you do something original and it's successful, you never see that shit again. Okay? You never see that shit again. Alright? Remember when they did Black Panther and shit? They had more than enough time to put out a second Black Panther and shit, right? But they didn't. They sat on it and shit. And then Chadwick Boseman passed away. And they made this lesser version where everything was now, the whole society, the whole African society was now matriarchal. Okay? And I don't care about no feminist gonna tell me that was a flawed movie and shit. There's no talent. There's no creative agency in Tinseltown. And that tinsel is aluminum foil and shit, apparently. Right? You know, if I had to have the Black James Bond, I would have rather had an Idris Elba and shit who has a range to do something like that. Who has range. You know, I remember when they introduced a Black Money Penny and then there was a Naomi Harris and shit. And I was like, why the fuck did they do that? I wouldn't even have. They had another black dude there. They'd never say, I don't even recall them ever saying what that guy's name was. That guy passed away now. You know, it wasn't Lance Reddick, it was another black. No, that black guy's still alive, I think. But, like I never questioned that shit. That guy looked like he alive. This guy is a wooden statue. And I'm just like, you know, okay, man. You know, do I have to fucking say that I think you're 9AY? When we can look with our own eyes and see there's something wrong here. You know, how can this guy be a James Bond? You know, look at all the fucking James Bonds, right? Look at them. You know, do they look like that? The closest associate that she could have with him between, you know, cross racial lines would be the previous James Bond and shit. Another guy was sexually suspect and busted, you know, in gay bars and all kind of shit, you know, by paparazzi. Alright? It's not because he's 9AY. Alright? It's not because of that. If he is. Right? Just saying, just my thoughts. But I feel like this social engineer at the highest order. They're just vandalizing established pop culture for some reason and shit. It's some kind of breakdown and shit. It's sad to see. There's no, you know, a lot of people, you know, I'm really disappointed with Barbara Broccoli for destroying her father's legacy and shit. You know, there's a documentary that was on Hulu about one of the James Bonds and shit. He said that they were doing some weird shit when they were vetting him for the role. And one of the things they had did, now no cap, okay, you can look that up, is George Lazenby did a documentary about being James Bond and shit. He was in Her Majesty's Secret Service. He said that a handler came to his hotel room with a woman and asked him to have sex with the woman while he watched and shit. And he said it was a extremely attractive woman. And he said he looked and said, "What the fuck is this shit?" He said, "Oh, a boy wants to know if you're gay or not." And so he's banged the chick. He said he banged living shit out of the chicken for while the guy sat on a chair next to the bed looking at them intently. And then said the guy that took the chick with him and left and shit. And he ended up having some series of meetings. He had the fucking job. He fucked himself out of the job. They had him on a couple of pictures deal. He fucked himself out of the job so bad they had to bring back Sean Connery. See what I'm going with this? We got Aaron Pierre, man. She had a weird fucking face. You know, you got these sisters out here. They're gonna big up this shit probably, you know, because they want to fuck this guy. He's never gonna fuck them. Even if he could fuck them, he probably wouldn't want to. You know, that they're gonna do it anyway. And I remember when Tiana Taylor was getting her fucking divorce, and she popped up with this guy on the red carpet, and all these women, all they could think to say was that, uh, Iman Shumpert is eating his heart out because she's leveled up and shit. I'm like, she's leveled up to a gay man. She's gay herself. She's androgynous and shit. I mean, you're not fooling anybody. They don't even try to do their job. In the old days, the studio used to really have this shit together, you know, about keeping things, you know, looking a certain way. You should really have that shit, man. You know, so it's Hollywood is a state of decay. All right, it already was built on a dark foundation and shit, but it's really seeped out into the open and shit where they don't think enough of the public to even try to cover this shit up. And this is why we keep seeing all this nonsense. You know, a lot of people are we're talking about the Diddy trial and shit. It's taking a back burner for now because it's a closed door situation. A lot of people are talking about that, but this shit been going on for decades. And I can't bring up reading that book Hollywood Babylon enough. Okay, shit's a fucking eye opener. It's eye opener and shit. I could put up several examples of, you know, the minority majority doing shit worse than Diddy out in the open, and nobody would bat an eye, right? And they want to make this weird looking dead wood piece of wood, the next 007 and shit. And you people probably don't watch that. You don't fuck with it like my shit is the Geek Underground, okay? I don't fuck with it like that. I understand that, okay? You do you. I do me. That's my shit. It's my fucking platform for as long as I have it before the misandrous witches come for me. God damn. I think this dude is gay. Alright? I think he's gay. He ain't making no bones about it. Shit, he ain't nobody asking him one way or the other. I don't care if he tell me he was married or anything, man. He has this trauma look on his face. And I've seen that look on at least two other people. You know, the guy that played Black Manta in that Aquaman movie, he has that same fucking weird ass look where it makes me uneasy. Like I wouldn't want to be like in an enclosed space with this motherfucker unless I was facing the door or my back was facing the door. More importantly, all right, not that he would do anything, but it's just saying it's a weird and fucked up look of somebody that, you know, I don't want to say trauma or nothing, but he just has this dead look. And before I go, you know, you guys talking shit. And one day it's proved that I'm right. You know, I know you bitches ain't gonna give me my quote unquote flowers. But I'll posit you this and shit. If you are geeks out there, you know, it's been a show that was on since the '60s. It's a legacy show from Britain. It was called Doctor Who. Doctor Who. Okay, and the protagonist is a time traveler that can, you know, every time he gets ready to die, he regenerates into a completely new person, a completely new persona. You know, they recently in recent years gave us a female version of this character. Okay. And then after that, they gave us a black Doctor Who. A black Doctor Who, right? And how did they introduce him? He was flamboyantly gay. Alright? He's wearing like a kilt and shit. You know, I'm not saying that's gay. I'm just saying, you know, it's the closest they could get to a dress without somebody raising an eyebrow. If they could, they would have this motherfucker premiering like a ball gown or something. And he was gay and he danced and he was holding the edges of his kilt, dancing around, shaking his booty. And I think he kissed a man on a couple episodes and shit. And was just talking about getting his cheeks clapped and shit. And I'm like, what is the fuck does this have to do with a show that's been around since 1960, literally, right? They gave us a black Doctor Who finally, and he was a flamboyantly gay man. And the reaction was so vociferous or whatever, so people were so angry about this and shit. White people and shit mostly. They were so angry about this shit that the ratings for the show went into the toilet, shit, like a nuclear winter of ratings. And they ended up replacing him, and they replaced him with a white woman. So a white woman regenerates into a gay ass black man, a super gay black man that runs for everything. He's even has a falsetto scream while he's running away, and they just went all out with it and had him dancing and prancing around and shit. I'm gay. Like, don't worry, no dick ain't getting near no white women and shit. Okay. Yeah. So white woman regenerates into a gay man, and then that gay man, after ratings go in the toilet, regenerates back into a different white woman played by Billie Piper. And today we have this weird looking motherfucker with his dead eye stare being up for the next James Bond. We have to be the next James Bond, Aaron Pierre, a weird looking dick lip motherfucker. Okay? I'm sorry, man. If you ain't getting none of that shit, that's just weird. You need to work on your shit or something. I don't know what to tell you. You look like a mannequin, man. It's the resting, the deadness in your face, the petrified nature of your face that's matched by your supposed current partner in crime, the person you supposedly share the sheets with, Teyana Taylor, who has a similar dead, disaffected expression on her face that I've seen on one other motherfucker that I can think in recent memory. The same asshole that played Aquaman and shit. I don't have his fucking name here. Right? So yeah, I think it's a bad idea to do this. But they're socially engineering you. At this point, it's just overt trolling from the 1%. They don't care. They don't care about Ian Fleming and all that shit. I don't care about Ian Fleming's ass either and shit. But I do care about what I see as degradation and breakdown of, society at every corner and shit. Okay? And that's something for misogynist anarchists to say. Alright? Something for them to say. You'd say, why I'd be upset about it? Well, I was plunked down in front of the television and left there for many years in my childhood. Alright? The Geek Underground. I was plunked down and left there. Alright? And had to make my own way in the world and shit. And you key to things and shit. So I keyed to, movies, TV, comics, the works and shit. Okay? And those things helped me survive and, form my, the basis, the matrix of who I am today. Right? Besides, I guess my parents. Right? They're just, it's child's play looking at this bullshit. And, they don't even try to be coy about anything across the board in this decaying portion of the Western civilization and shit, okay? Alright? It wasn't about Aaron Pierre being gay, like straight up, like in her face and shit without saying that shit with this dead eye stare. Especially in photos with his supposed girlfriend who has a similar dead eye stare. It's not as, I'm not saying there stays an arranged public face, relationship. I'm not saying that. You can either, make your own conclusions and believe your lying eyes, or you can keep doing what you've been doing and shit, okay? Right? So, yeah. This motherfucker may or may not be 007. Alright, I think the producers are waiting to see what the initial reaction is because they recently put this shit out. It's June 18th of 2025, and I found out about the shit yesterday. So I decided to make a commentary about it, shit, because I've done a lot of other shit, and I might as well do this too. Something to think about, right? Anyway, what can I say, shit, to you guys? what can I say that I haven't already said this shit? I'll just say that SYSBM equals, or it means save yourself black man and shit. You know, if you're on that kick, man, you know why I posted this shit, okay? I'm out. Take care. Love you, kings.